Welcome again to Lynda Rose. And Lynda, you've had the COVID, but they tell me that it's better to have it in summer than winter, is it?
Well, I don't think it's much fun getting it any time, to be honest. Yeah, it's not nice having it. I had thought once I had, COVID, okay, maybe now I'm going to have immunity. But then I read all the reports saying there were two strains of COVID around this year. So I have no idea which particular strain I got, but presumably because it says you don't get immunity for the other strain. So I'm probably no better off than everybody else now.
You cannot win. Uh,
No.
we, we should move on to You Cannot Win because you've written a piece headlined God Has Not Finished with the UK. Plenty of people think he has, but there you go, there's hope. But I'll tell you what, the history, we've got a fantastic history. And it started a long 2000 years ago, didn't it? When we became a Christian country.
Well, we didn't become a Christian country 2,000 years ago, but Christianity arrived on our shores around AD 40 and it took root. It's just like you plant a little seed in the ground and these little shoots come up. And that's what happened with us. And it really did, it was very well established by the time the Romans left in AD 400. And of course, then we had a kind of pagan invasion with the Anglo-Saxons. But Christianity still continued to flourish. And of course, in time, all our friendly invaders also converted. So that by about, 750 AD, we were a Christian country. I won't say a nation because, of course, we were made up of lots of different bits still at that time, but we were a Christian country by about that time. And we have remained Christian ever since. Not been perfect, you look back in our history and you can see that we got it wrong sometimes, but we have been Christian throughout that time, and God has always protected and delivered us from that time. Okay, I know people will say, what about William the Conqueror? Yep, he came over, Christian, and but that was the last time we were ever invaded as such, and the Lord has protected us while we kept faith with him.
Well, that's fascinating because we are moving on to, as it were, the present day. And here we are, and I didn't think things were that advanced. The Anglican Church is split. You should know as an Anglican priest more than anybody. But I'll tell you what, some of the laity and priests have got it absolutely right, and it's scary. And the thing they're saying is prepare for World War III. Wow. Now, this is coming from part of the army, the pastors in the army, the chaplains in the army. And there's 200 of them, Lynda. I didn't realize there was that. That's more than the fighting men, but some of them are, aren't they?
Bit gloomy there, so it's more than the fighting men, but I know what you mean.
Yes. Now, God's army within the army are saying this, and they obviously at the sharp end of things, I suppose, would know how close we are to war.
Mm.
Things are being prepared in the background that we don't know about. So we think of China, we think of Putin, of course, we think of the Middle East. Are we prepared for war? I've just seen an article saying, didn't Israel do well when they were in effect fighting Iran? And they've got this dome of protection, and America's getting the dome of protection. But with these super fast missiles, we probably need a dome of protection from Russia, as an example. Lynda, we've got nothing. It is a bit scary, isn't it?
I think it's very scary, and it's not just chaplains in the army that have been warning of war. There's been rumblings about this for quite a while from government, head of MI5, MI6. They've both said we've got to prepare for war. When they give warnings, you take it very seriously. And our armed forces are woefully inadequate at the moment, and our weapon systems are also pretty depleted. They need some massive upgrading. And Keir Starmer has announced that he's increasing defence spending, but I personally have not actually seen much evidence of that yet. And I think it's also inadequate anyway. We are going to face challenges. A lot of people are actually saying we're war already. And yes, we are at one sense. And we've seen Russian activity, put it that way, for the last couple of years, very hostile. Iranian hostility has been increasing massively. And of course, we've got the whole Islamic threats. It's just interesting that they've been talking about the problem with Afghanistan and bringing people over here that were working for us during the conflict and are in danger from Taliban. And of course, the latest figures show that I think it's only 1 in 16 of the number that they have brought over here actually were working for us and need protection. All the rest of them seem to have been active Taliban, which means that we've actually invited a hostile enemy force into our nation that has no compunction in going around killing people. So at every level, we seem to be in a situation that is extremely hazardous, to put it mildly.
Indeed, it is. And we think back to the beginning of World War II. And throughout World War II, there were actually 7 occasions when the people in power, whether it be the king or the prime minister, said, we've got a problem here in Dunkirk, as an example. And there was a day of prayer. There were 7 of these, and every time there was a miracle. God answers the prayer. I've got a question for you. If something similar happened today, would an atheist prime minister be of any assistance? Would the king be of any assistance? He who regards everybody as being inclusive and even allows strange events to go on in his churches attached to his castles. We're not in the same position, are we, to call on God for help?
No, very quite clearly, we are not in that position. I mean, Keir Starmer is a self-proclaimed atheist, and a lot of those in government, um, a lot are atheist. We've also got a very high um, multicultural contingent that are embracing a whole range of different religions. The number of committed Christians are actually quite quite low these days. The good news is that I think there is a revival already in evidence, and that is good news. But you are absolutely right that if we were to face the same sort of perils now as we faced in World War II, there would not be that call to prayer from the king and from government, and there wouldn't be the mass outturning in response. And I've been so struck by the photographs that I've been looking at this past week of the response to that call for prayer. People literally queuing round and round the block all over the country. Thousands and thousands of people turned out to pray, which is absolutely extraordinary. So, no, at the moment, we would not have that same response. But I do think that we are still a Christian country, believe it or not. And there are a lot of Christians in this country still who I think are utterly appalled at what has been going on, at the leadership that they have been given, and that want very much to see that revival and return to the sovereignty of Christ, to coming under his banner. And I think that is what the call is to us today. I am convinced that God is actually calling out to us to repent. He has watched over us so amazingly this last 2000 years. And I sincerely believe that he has not given up on us at all. He's seen the situation and it's bad. It really is bad. There's no getting over it. But I think God actually is calling us now. He's saying, come back to me. You can't manage this by yourselves, but come back to me and I will manage it for you. But it is imperative that we do come back to him as a nation. And I think that is the call on us at the moment is to call this nation back. And I'm including everybody here. Christians, lapsed Christians, people of other faiths who have been blinded by what they've been taught. God is now, I believe, calling out to them. But we have to come to know him again. We have to be obedient to him again for that protection to actually come into place. That he's still sovereign. We're just a bit in rebellion at the moment, but he is calling us back to him.
People are talking about a Christian leader with strength,
Mm.
and it'll come through one man, one woman, the revival, if you wish. Is that possible?
With God, all things are possible, Rodney. One looks around and as a mere human being and you think, oh my goodness. No. But again, I think as a part of God's call to us at this time, and I do believe this, that he is actually saying to us, when you come back to me, I will defend you and I will raise up for you the leader for this time. And for me personally, I was reading. We've got a Friday fast on at the moment, so we're fasting every Friday. And a couple of weeks ago, when I was praying, the Lord drew me. It's the only way of putting it, to Jeremiah chapter 30, which is it's the most amazing chapter. Of course, it's addressed to Israel, but I felt the Lord saying this actually is a message to the UK at this time. And I would encourage people listening to this to go and read Jeremiah 30, because it says, your wound is incurable and you're suffering all of this. I have allowed this suffering because you have gone so far astray from me. But come back. I have not forsaken you. I will restore you. And the promise in Jeremiah 30 is that God will raise up for the people. He starts off saying, David, a new David. And then he goes on and it expands a bit on this. And he says, I will raise up for you a people from amongst you, from your own people. And that to me was incredibly, I felt him saying this for, I think a couple of years. That hasn't seemed very probable. But I felt the Lord, it was a real encouragement and affirmation that he is going to raise up for us a leader from amongst our own people. So we're not going to be, conquered and have a leader put over us who's of a different culture, a different ethnicity, different, all the rest of it, different nationality. But he is going to raise up a people, a leader from amongst our own people who will share our beliefs, who will know God and who will lead this nation once again in the ways of God. And I believe that the Lord still has a purpose for the UK. I don't think this is just, God being nice, though I think he is very nice, but I think God has got a purpose for the UK. And when we turn and come back to him, when he establishes us, I think he will use us once again to take his truth out into this world, which so badly needs it. Now, I don't know. Are we in end times? We may very well be. I think whatever happens now, it's going to be challenging and frightening and, you know, not good. But within that, he has a purpose for us, and he won't let us go if we come back to him and are faithful to him. So that's the call, I think, to the UK at this time. And as Christians, that is the call of each one of us to, be on active service in his army and try and bring people back to know the Lord once again.
There's been some encouragement, of course, with even the Gen Zers, that's our future, they say, actually thinking and saying, well, yeah, is there something in this God story? And that's encouraging. Of all generations you'd have picked, you wouldn't have picked them, but that's the way maybe God is working.
And
Uh,
the extraordinary thing, Rodney, is that a lot of they're not being evangelized. They're actually spontaneously going out and buying Bibles and saying, "Hey, this is the truth."
mm.
This really is a move of God. And I was so encouraged the other day, Rodney. I went out downtown where I live, and every once in a while you get street preachers, and they're always of a certain age, and they're a bit quiet. I mean, they're lovely people. They're really, going for it, but they are a certain age. But the other day I went down, and there was a young guy of about 20. And he was very tall and he had a microphone and a whole sound system. And he was blasting people with the word of God. And I thought, wow, that was so encouraging. This is a young man going out for the Lord. Tremendous.
Well, as long as the big leaders of our nation don't come along and shout hate speech, that is a real danger.
Mm. Yes, there are more and more incidents of Christians who are preaching on the street being arrested because what they say is just so unacceptable these days. So there are a lot of cases of that. And at
We
sea,
should expect it, shouldn't we? It's been foretold.
it has been foretold. Yeah, which is one of the things that does make me think, are we in end times? Because it really does seem extraordinary the way, events are unfolding, all seem to be the fulfillment of Scripture.
We're going to leave the subject for a short while and we're going to do some advertising now. But before we do that, we're going to mention something else which you mentioned in your recent letter. And that is by way of a health warning
Mm.
regarding our water, because there are nasties in there, and it's coming from the abortion pill, and they can't filter out the nasties. So it's getting into everybody's body. That together, even with abortion waste, can we call it? Horrible term, but that's what it is. Real people being killed, and it's now coming back to haunt us.
Yes, by and large, in the UK at least, we are totally ignorant of this, but there's a lot of research going on at the moment over in the US because, I mean, as you know, I'm sure, most abortions these days are chemical. And I think easily this year we're going to see over 300,000 abortions. And most of those, 90% of those will be chemical with these abortion pills that women have just, phoned up and got from the doctor. And that means that they take them at home and everything then just comes out, into the sewage system. So these drugs are going out without any kind of regulation. And as you said, they can't filter them out, so it's just going straight into the general water supply. Now, this is extremely worrying because let's not forget these drugs are to cause a miscarriage, abortion. If women very, very happily pregnant drink this water, there is a danger that they will, the drug will do what it says on the tin. It will produce a miscarriage for them. The other danger, though, is that we shouldn't be taking all these chemicals. And yet, all of us are drinking this. What is the effect on the health of the general population? What is the effect on the health of children? We don't know yet because it's too early to say. But we really should be looking at investigating this in great detail in order to protect the general population from the side effects of these drugs. And you mentioned too that fetal remains, they are just going straight into the sewage system because a woman has an abortion at home and the baby just goes straight down the loo, gets flushed away. And I know that sounds harsh and it's probably going to be quite upsetting to some people to hear me say that, but this is the reality. We are pumping human remains every day into the water system. We all know that actually you shouldn't be drinking water with that in it. And again, we have a Victorian system in this country. It cannot cope with these kind of pressures. So we need urgent investigation, urgent regulation of the use of this drug and what happens when women take it at home. As I say, there's already a lot of research going on over in the States, and it's alarming. They're beginning to think, whoa, we've let the demon out of the box here. So they are beginning to think about bringing in restrictions. In the UK, we haven't woken up to this. We must now, before it's too late, because we are going to harm the whole of the general public if we don't actually do something to keep a closer eye on this and regulate the use of these drugs. So we've got a
Break.
petition going.
Yeah.
And I do urge everybody to go and have a look at the website and sign this petition. We're going to, I think, be trying to stir up even more of a campaign in the autumn to try and get government to do something about this.
Yeah, breaking God's law eventually has, in one way or another, consequences.
Mm.
Um, Moving on swiftly before we have to go, uh, can we mention your conference on the 1st of November? You've got some luminaries there, haven't you, coming along to London?
Yes, they are heavyweight speakers there. So we've got Lord Toby Young of the Free Speech Union. We've got Professor Andrew Tettenborn, who is uh, a commentator on just religious freedoms. He does some splendid work. We've got Robin Aitken. Of course, a lot of people will know from his work with the BBC and just as a journalist in general, just as a journalist in general. I mean, he's a real heavyweight. He does some tremendous work. Who have I forgotten? Lord Nigel Biggar, who is fascinating when you hear him talk and what the no platforming that he has been subjected to because of his beliefs. So that's very heavyweight. Have I forgotten anybody there, Rodney? I'm trying to think.
Well, we've forgotten our own Paul Diamond.
Oh, Paul,
Changed
yes,
it.
of course. Yes, Paul is be a wonderful contributor to this conference because he has represented so many people who have had human rights issues. They've been arrested because of their faith, been arrested for wearing a cross. They've been arrested for praying with people. And Paul has represented so many of these people in the big cases. So it's absolutely fascinating to have his perspective on all of this. And we are so very, very pleased that he's going to be with us on that day. So it promises to be very good. And again, this is something that we need to wake up to because the UK has always been home of the free. We've prided ourselves on free speech, freedom of belief. We protect the underdog. We may not agree with them, but we protect their right to speak. And it's gone. You can say anything these days, provided it fits with this woke ideology. That's why we're seeing so many Christians who are being arrested because the Bible doesn't fit with woke culture. So it's urgent again that we bring this to light and that the public says, no, this is not the English way. We do stand up for freedom of speech, for freedom of belief. We protect those who are at risk. We've got to wake up, and that's why this conference is so important.
Briefly, you mentioned CDAC.
Mm.
Tell us about that.
CDAC, its full name is Commission of Inquiry into Discrimination Against Christians. And again, we've been much struck over the last few years by how many Christians have contacted us saying they've got problems. And of course, this doesn't seem to exist on the public radar. So we thought we will have a commission of inquiry and we will set it up on very strict lines that, conform with all the protocols that they would use in a government called commission of inquiry. So it's been very strictly set up and regulated. And we are looking into reports of where Christians feel that they have been discriminated against or put at a disadvantage because of their faith, or just been ignored in schools, in the health service, or whatever, because they are Christian. We are hearing reports and testimony from people who say they have been put in any way at a disadvantage for their faith. And from the start, we said, well, we will try and look at this as honestly as we can. So if we find that there's absolutely no evidence that people are just being a bit, they said this and it's not fair, we will say that. But we want to get the truth. And whatever the truth is, whether it shows there has been discrimination against Christians, or whether actually it shows that this is all, a load of rubbish, we will make a formal report to Parliament. And we have been going now for just over 18 months. And the commission will be autumn, which is why I've got the conference scheduled for November the 1st. And we are then going to be preparing our formal report for Parliament, which, God willing, will be submitted in spring 2026. So again, people, if they go on our website at www.cdac.org, they can see what we've been doing. They can look at past hearings. Most of the hearings are public, but some, as people will appreciate, have to be in private because they're ongoing legal cases or because it's very, very sensitive what's been happening for them, or there's a danger to them. We've had that too, a danger to them in speaking out. But the public hearings people can access on the website. And when it comes to the report that we make, again, we have to respect people's need for privacy, and we have undertaken to do that. So cases will be referred to in the formal report that are in camera, as it's called, but we won't be revealing the names of those people or being including details that will allow them to be identified that might put them at risk. So we're very, very aware of that. Again, I would encourage people just go to the website because there have been the most extraordinary testimonies of what's happened to people. And we had a recent hearing of somebody involved in a pro-life group at university, and the physical violence that was brought against this group, completely mind-blowing. You think this couldn't happen in this country. So, I encourage people to go and have a look at it. And perhaps even more importantly, if they feel they have been put in any way at a disadvantage, please let me urge them to get in touch with us just to explore at this point the possibility of giving evidence. As I said, we work with people very sensitively, we hope, to ensure that they feel safe and that they are comfortable in giving any evidence that they give. But we need it.
Fine, Lynda, time has gone. Sorry, we'll leave you with the last word in this. As an ex-barrister yourself, we are thinking of the modern day remedy for all our ills, and that is through the law. We must bring in another law. We'll change things through the law. Oh, we can't obey this law, but we can obey the international law, even though it was 70 years old and completely out of date, ECHR and co. Now, law's not worked, has it?
Um, our laws in this country, I think, are actually very good. The problem is that they have been misapplied or not applied in recent years. And I think a good example of this is the Equality Act and, the protected characteristics. And as people know, there are 9 protected characteristics, and religion is one of those. Religion and belief is one of those protected characteristics. Um, Sadly, those protected characteristics seem to ignore that one these days, and it all relates to sexual rights, basically. They are being prioritized over everything else. And people say, well, gender choice is a protected characteristic. No, it's not. Gender reassignment may be a protected characteristic, but gender choice isn't. And yet we are seeing, these diversity, equality, and inclusivity schemes that seem to be de rigueur everywhere. They teach this, they pick up on this to the exclusion of all else. So it's not being applied properly, I would say, Rodney. If we could get back, and what CEDAC is calling for is not for new law. We've got enough laws. What we are calling for is proper understanding and application of the law, and for interest groups, activist groups, to be stopped from exploiting the law. Can I just add one thing there before we go? Because in the last mailing that I sent out that you referred to today with the 7 days of prayer, that was actually put together by somebody called Pastor John to strengthen the faithful. And he's doing tremendous work on alerting people to what happened in the with the miracles of prayer. And he's produced a video of what happened at Dunkirk, which is really worth watching. So again, if people just have a look at our mailing or go on our website, they'll find details about Pastor John and how to contact him if they'd like to know more. And I think he's doing splendid work in just bringing the effects of what happened with those days of prayer to the nation and just calling the nation again to repent, because God still is a God of power who will respond in that same way.
Thank you, Lynda. It's been too long. Don't go and get COVID again. We will see you very shortly.
God willing, I hope so. And stay strong in Spain, Rodney.